there have been attempts to set up a solar manufacturing facility here. But again, the demand and the attractiveness of such a scheme depends on the private sector. It is always good to say the PCJ or government should do this, but then we get criticized that we are intruding on the businesses that the private sector should undertake. And I understand that right now there are options that are being looked at between the private sector and Cuban manufacturers. Under the Petro-Caribe Renewable Energy and Efficiency Program, that working group, we have targeted a solar manufacturing facility that would supply components to Jamaica for an industry here. But in terms of the cells and so on, we would not be able to produce the solar cells. For solar PV, now that is an area that we have not begun to tap, because there are the developed world, Germany for instance, they are using photovoltaic to generate electricity, selling it back to the grid. You have net metering, you have net billing, where you can actually generate electricity and sell it back to the public utilities. These are some finer points that we will have as government regulators and technocrats to work through to ensure that this happens. But of course, we need the support of the public utilities company. That is very important. We hear of issues of reliability, but it is for the technocrats to do the math, to do the quantitative and the qualitative analysis, to really to say whether this is so or not, because it works in California, it works in Germany, that has half the solar radiation that Jamaica has. And we have a solar radiation map. We are actually updating it by collaboration with the physics department of the University of the West Indies to encourage persons. If we look at, say, a community like Portmore, where the conditions are ideal, hot, high solar radiation, flat roofs, you know, it would seem that common sense would probably say, well, that's an ideal community to set up such facilities. But these are things that we need to pull together our academics as well as our engineers and our technicians and our social community-based organizations to make them work. Because in a lot of the countries abroad who have introduced wind systems and photovoltaic systems, they actually do them on a communal basis, and it makes it easier. But again, collaboration and cooperation is important. Recently, the list of products that are zero rated for GCT and other taxes has been increased to include things like batteries, because initially we had a listing of photovoltaic equipment, but there were some common items that could be used in other industries that were not zero rated, and that helped to compromise solar providers, renewable energy providers, in making it economically viable for householders. But we have over 100 householders now who are totally off-grid. It's a bit expensive initially, but the payback is good. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes. We have a couple more questions. Is there a microphone? To Pamela. Right. Thank you.
Pamela Cook Hamilton, Organization of American States, Washington, D.C. I'm really excited to hear about the work being done on the alternative energy sources, particular solar and wind. I lived in Barbados for the last 3 years before returning to Washington, and I was amazed at how much they have incorporated solar energy into everything. There are now houses that are completely run by solar energy. With respect to your comment about 2% utilization, I must admit I was a little, more than a little taken aback. Why? Because, you know, they say there are lies, there are damn lies, and then there are statistics. I think in this case that is true. Because I think the reason why most Jamaicans do not use solar energy, well, do not use warm water, is because they don't have access to it, because it is too expensive to turn on the heater and to heat the water. Do you know how your electricity bill goes up when you turn on that water heater? It's simply a question of cost. I do not know of one Jamaican who has ever gone abroad, or even gone to Mona, for example. I lived on Hall, and didn't use the warm water, even in the height of summer. So I do not think that it is based on a question of not wanting. I don't think you have to create a demand for color TV or cable. In the same way, I do not believe we need to create a demand in Jamaica for warm water. I just think that is a question of cost. And if it were provided on a basis that was cost-friendly, as solar is, then I don't think that I think, as a matter of fact, every house would have it. So that's just my comment for what it's worth. But I do think that looking at the Barbados model, I don't think we need to go as far as Germany, would be phenomenal in what they alone have done in that island. Thank you.
Yes, please, lady, and then the gentleman here.
Good afternoon, Judith Turbine from Christian Aid. Just a couple of quick questions. One is to do with the production of ethanol and biofuels and so on, and the extent to which the debate over food security is kind of influencing the decision making on that, because obviously that can be a concern if land that should be used for food crops is being used for that. So that's my first question. And my second question is just around about wind energy. I'm from Scotland, and there's quite a lot of wind energy there now, but there's not a lot often of public acceptance for it. And I just wonder, in Jamaica, what has been the acceptance of wind farms here?
Yes, to the gentleman.
I'm Ralph Chen, Civic and Consumer Affairs Advocate, and I'm seeking clarification from the panel on 3 points. I think someone is advocating the use of LNG for the public transportation sector, and I'd like the panel to give me their views on that issue. The next matter is, despite the feasibility of employing coal for electricity generation, because despite the environmental concerns, given Jamaica's ability to finance the cost of power, coal is a good option because it is plentiful and cheap. And the third matter is that it has been mentioned by some authors that the reserves that Saudi Arabia is said to have is overestimated, and that there is not as much oil available in the world as it is thought.